Alright, let's see if this is working now.
Original and garlic.
So this is working. Which okay, so this is working. So how do I set this up? I don't like this. So if we did this, turn this off, add here, window capture, add source. Okay, I still don't like that. We're just testing some stuff out, guys. So how does this look on YouTube? Okay, so it doesn't look too bad. Back a little bit. Not sure I like how this looks. Go back to here. Where's the rest of the screen? What the hell is going on? You can't see the hole. Let's do this. Let's go here. see what a YouTube video looks like on it.
The holidays can be a lot, but with your new Dell PC with Intel inside, you can handle a lot. From taking care of holiday to-dos to taking care of Aunt Jean, even if she can be a lot.
Build a website you love with Wix, where your words create your brand, your opportunity, your breakthrough. Add solutions that meet you where you are and take you where you want to go. Wix.
While there were no official winners in the NASCAR lawsuit, it's safe to say the teams got most of what they wanted. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Happy Friday, folks. We've now had 24 hours to digest yesterday's historic agreement between 23XI Racing, Front Row Motorsports, and NASCAR. We knew that permanent or evergreen charters were a part of this resolution, but now there are reports telling us a bit more of what both sides actually agreed to. And I gotta say, the race teams got quite the haul. If we compare this to like a trade, it may be more lopsided than the Luca deal. Remember, when the 2025 charter negotiations first began several years ago, there were 4 key pillars the teams wanted NASCAR to address: permanent charters, increased revenue splits, more decision-making power, and 1/3 of all new revenue coming into the industry. But when negotiations were finalized, the teams maybe got one of the 4 pillars they asked for. They did get an increase in their media rights revenue. They got a slightly larger split of a slightly larger pie. Not the number they asked for, but more than they used to get. So you could say they maybe got 1 out of the 4. But now, as a result of yesterday's settlement, a lot has changed. Everyone will receive evergreen charters. 23XI and Front Row will receive an undisclosed, though per reporter Bob Pockrass, a significant settlement amount. According to the AP's Jenna Fryer, quote, teams will now share an international revenue for the first time. The 3-strike rule will be reinstated as a 5-strike rule. And The Athletic's Jordan Bianchi adds that teams will receive, quote, 1/3 portion of new business deals involving teams' intellectual property. My understanding is that could tie into things like sports betting, for example. So apply all these new changes to the team's original 4 pillars, put a check mark next to permanent charters. They finally got Jim France to concede on this. Bob Pockrass reports there will still be some sort of performance standard, and if you don't meet them, then you will be forced to sell your charter over a period of time. Pockrass also reports that NASCAR will now get a 10% cut of all future charter sales, whereas it used to only be a 2% cut. So NASCAR did get something tangible in exchange for permanent charters. Put a check next to that second pillar, increased revenues. While still perhaps not as great as the teams originally hoped for, they will now be getting additional media revenue from the international TV deals. I'll leave an X on the third pillar, but while the teams may not have gotten a greater seat at the table, at least a form of the strikes rule is back in place, which gives the teams a little more power than they originally had under the 2025 agreement. But that final pillar, check. It sounds like the teams will be getting 1/3 of new revenue, especially when it involves their intellectual property. So the teams went from getting maybe one of their 4 pillars, kind of, to now getting roughly 3 out of 4 pillars, I'd argue. Bubba Wallace on X said, "Monumental day." Denny Hamlin on Instagram shared this on his story, "Drinks all around, celebratory." Rick Hendrick released a statement saying in part, quote, "I'm incredibly optimistic about what's ahead. When our industry is united, there's no limit to how far we can go or how much we can grow the sport we love." Roger Penske said, quote, "Today's settlement is tremendous news for the industry. We are stronger together as a sport, and the agreement today allows all of us to focus on what's important, the continued growth of NASCAR." And then the Wood brothers simply said, "Great news." Clearly, the other race teams were pretty pleased with the results of yesterday's resolution. All I'm saying is that the other Cup Series teams should have 2311 and Front Row on their Christmas list this holiday season. Joe Gibbs Racing should consider giving 2311 a discount on their alliance costs this year. Maybe other teams should cater Long John Silver's for company events. Does Long John Silver's even do that? I don't know. I'm just saying. 2311 Front Row, they took the risk, but now all the teams get to reap at least some of the reward. Why did NASCAR finally agree to a settlement? We half joked yesterday that the Childress NDA drama combined with the scathing Johnny Morris Bass Pro Shops letter, perhaps those factors put extra pressure on NASCAR's side to find a conclusion. But while those may have been factors, is it possible that NASCAR simply realized that they weren't going to win? NASCAR's a monopoly. That was already decided. The question was, did NASCAR use anti-competitive tactics to maintain their monopoly? I followed this case very closely, was in the courtroom the last couple of days. I would argue that the two most damning pieces of evidence, or at least the two factors that NASCAR's side was having a difficult time defending, were one, the track exclusivity agreements. I pointed this out back on like day 2, whenever Scott Prime was the first NASCAR executive to take the stand. Jeffrey Kessler quickly zeroed in on the fact that over the last decade, NASCAR has signed exclusive contracts with SMI tracks, and that when SMI asked them to waive that clause so that they could host an SRX race, NASCAR said no, and there was documentation and evidence that NASCAR viewed the SRX as a legitimate competitor. This is just my opinion, but I imagine the jury was likely to view those exclusivity contracts as anti-competitive behavior. Again, you'd have to consider the context. NASCAR is a monopoly in the premier stock car racing marketplace. There's nothing wrong with them signing tracks to long-term deals, getting long-term commitments. But when I was in the courtroom, at least, I never heard a really strong argument as to why they needed to put those exclusivity deals in place. I feel like the jury would have held that against them. That's just my personal opinion. That's my speculation. Then the second piece of evidence that I think NASCAR did not have a good answer for was Jim France himself. Look, the France family has done many amazing things building up the stock car racing industry into what it is today, but messages from France's own leadership team referred to him as a brick wall, suggested he was unwilling to even consider a change to the charter model. He had no answer for most of Jeffrey Kessler's cross-examination. He had no knowledge of NASCAR's evaluation or their 2025 revenue. He was the chairman and CEO and owner of the company. He was more talkative the second day of the trial, but again, Kessler was able to use his own words against him. France said his leadership style is consensus building. Kessler then pointed to multiple pieces of evidence of France ignoring the consensus. NASCAR seemed to have most of the leverage during the charter negotiations, and based on testimony and evidence, it sounds like Jim France knew that, and therefore refused to engage with the teams on some of their key issues. So I think those two factors were two elements that NASCAR had a difficult time defending. I don't think it would have been a blowout, like, hey, 2311 Front Row, you win, here's all the damages you asked for, here's everything. I'm not sure that would have been the case. But the bigger problem for NASCAR, if 2311 and Front Row had won this trial, would have been what Judge Kenneth Bell decided, because suddenly he would have been in charge of restructuring major elements of the industry. By settling this case on their own, NASCAR was able to retain at least some control during their talks with 2311 and Front Row, which is why I say all along a settlement was the least risky, or at least the least destructive outcome. It just took many months longer than I feel it should have for both sides to finally agree with that conclusion. Based on what I've read, based on the reports, NASCAR certainly made more concessions to the teams yesterday than vice versa. But hey, at least they still had some control over what those concessions would be. If they had seen this trial through and lost, much of that would have been out of NASCAR's hands, and who knows what the future of NASCAR would have looked like in 2026, 2027, and beyond. That's my takeaway after reading about and watching this case play out firsthand. Sure, did the Childress stuff play a role? Maybe. Did the Johnny Morris letter? Was that a factor? Perhaps. Public sentiment? Sure, there might have been some pressure there. NASCAR was feeling it. But at the end of the day, I think NASCAR knew they were unlikely to win. With how things were playing out, settlement was their best option. The least destructive option, at least, from their perspective. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. The team certainly walk away with most of their key pillars fulfilled. The team seemed to be very happy today. Hopefully that bodes well for the short and long-term future of premier stock car racing. Time will tell. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. It has been a tumultuous 2 weeks. In some ways, it's been a tumultuous 15 plus months. But the case has been settled. A resolution struck. Let me know what you're thinking now in the comment section below. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe for more NASCAR content and commentary every single day, even throughout the off season. We've got some on and off track news to catch up on here in the coming days. Thanks for following along. I will see you again very, very soon. Have a great rest of your afternoon, y'all.
I said I'd plan a Paris honeymoon. I've never even been to Europe.
AI that with Copilot.
AI that with a Copilot Plus PC from Best Buy.
I'm just kind of messing with settings and stuff. Sorry for the boring stream, guys. I still don't like that. I just don't like the size of this. No, that's not what I want to do. I need to make this frame smaller, but it won't let me. No, I don't want it that low. Oh my fucking god. It's not what I'm trying to do. This is starting to really frustrate me.